Someone paid $500 for this PlayStation 3. It was sold as a Frankenstein modded console, professionally restored, upgraded with a more reliable graphics chip, and backed by a 6-month warranty. Within a short time of owning it, it started doing this. The customer reached out to the seller, and the seller stopped responding, which in hindsight should have been expected. The eBay account behind Aurelia Tech Mods is VacayMoney25. Apparently, it's not just the seller who likes taking vacations, the consoles do too. This is what I found when I opened it up. Before we get into what was wrong with this console, I want to explain what the Frankenstein mod is supposed to be, because it's actually a legitimate and well-regarded procedure in the PS3 community. Launch model PS3s ship with a 90nm RSX graphics chip. That chip has a well-documented failure problem. It runs hot, it degrades over time, and it eventually dies. When it does, you get graphical artifacting, crashes, and ultimately the yellow light of death. It's not a matter of if. On an unmodified launch PS3, it's a matter of when. The Frankenstein mod addresses this at the hardware level. A skilled technician removes the original 90nm RSX and replaces it with a 40nm version pulled from a later model PS3. The 40nm chip runs cooler, draws less power, and is dramatically more reliable under sustained load. Done correctly, this mod genuinely transforms a launch model PS3 from a ticking time bomb into a console that can last for many more years of regular use. That's the promise. That's what someone pays over $500 for. Now let me show you what this poor buyer actually got. The first thing I noticed when I opened up this console was a lot of dust. Now, dust alone isn't a deal breaker. These are old machines and they accumulate dust over time. But when you're selling a professionally restored console for over $500, cleaning it is the bare minimum. It takes about 20 minutes and costs you nothing. That was the first sign that whoever worked on this was moving fast and cutting corners, but it was not the last. Looking at the top side of the motherboard, I could see that some of the NEC token capacitors have been replaced, but not with what the listing claims. The listing specifically advertises tantalum capacitor upgrade. What's actually on this board appears to be Panasonic SP caps. Those are aluminum polymer capacitors. They're a legitimate choice for this kind of work, and I'm not going to knock the caps themselves. But the listing is describing components that aren't what was installed. That's not a technicality. That's the seller not accurately representing their own work. But the wrong capacitor type wasn't even the main problem on this side of the board. There were no MLCCs installed alongside them. And if you're not familiar, MLCC stands for multi-layer ceramic capacitor. When you replace the token caps, you're supposed to install small ceramic caps in parallel with the new bulk capacitors. They handle high-frequency noise filtering that the bulk caps alone can't manage efficiently. They're tiny, they cost almost nothing, and without them you're putting extra stress on the bulk caps and shortening their lifespan. The seller's listing doesn't mention MLCCs, not because they're not important, but because including them would mean actually doing the job properly. Then I flipped the motherboard over, and this is where the story gets a lot worse. The first thing I saw was the thermal pads. They were completely dried out, cracked, and completely fell apart. Replacement pads cost maybe a couple dollars per console. On a $500 build, there is no world in which leaving 20-year-old crumbling pads in place is acceptable. But that wasn't even the worst part about what I found on this side of the board. If you haven't noticed already, right there are the NEC token capacitors. The original ones. Every single one of them, never touched. Remember how the listing says that the capacitors are replaced on both A and B sides of the board? Well, here's B side, and nothing was done here. Not the SP caps from the top side, not tantalum, not anything. Just the original 20-year-old capacitors, still sitting exactly where Sony put them. And here's why that matters. These capacitors don't fail quietly. When they degrade, they pass dirty voltage through to the rest of the board. Replacing only half of them accomplishes nothing, because the failing originals still on the board are still doing damage. And we haven't even gotten to the most important part yet. When you install a 40nm RSX, one of the most critical steps is adjusting the Flex I/O interface voltage, referred to as VDDR, from the stock 1.2 volts down to 0.95. The 40nm chip is designed to operate at that lower voltage. Running it at the stock 1.2 volts is running it outside its intended operating range. Now, there are two ways to do this adjustment. The correct way is using a component called a BD3504 voltage regulator. It's more involved and requires more precise microsoldering, but it does the job properly, and crucially, it keeps the syscon in the loop. The syscon is the PlayStation 3's internal monitoring system. It watches the console's vital signs and can shut the system down safely if something goes wrong. The BD3504 method keeps that protection intact. The other way is sometimes called the dirty voltage mod. It gets the voltage where it needs to be, but it does so by cutting syscon out of the loop entirely. If something goes wrong after that, the console has no way to detect it and protect itself. This method is faster, and it requires less precise work, but it is not the right way to do this. The seller's listing mentions voltage under their boosted performance section. Just the word voltage. No mention of which method, no mention of BD3504. That vagueness is not an accident. It gives them just enough cover to claim they did something without committing to what. But on this console, neither method was done. The voltage was never adjusted at all. The whole point of the Frankenstein mod is to make these consoles last. This console, as delivered, was still heading towards the same failure it was supposed to prevent. The seller operates under the storefront name Aurelia Tech Mods. Sounds professional, right? The actual eBay username, however, is VKMoney25. Their separate mail and repair service is listed at $300, with 90 units sold through that listing alone. And here's where it gets interesting. The repair service listing is the only place I could find a photo of their actual work. And take a look at the voltage mod in that photo. That's the dirty voltage mod, not the BD3504. Their own proof of work photo shows the cheaper, less safe method, the one that cuts syscon out of the picture, while their console listings claim the voltage work is being done properly. And remember, on this unit, not even the dirty voltage mod was done. The listing also has a 6-month warranty. I'll read it directly. We stand by our service. Any issues related to the GPU replacement within this period, we'll fix it free of charge. The person who sent me this console reached out when problems appeared. VKMoney25 stopped responding. That's what the warranty is worth in practice. There's also an attempt fee buried in the terms. If the repair fails, you still owe them $100. So if the work doesn't succeed, they keep your money anyway. But if the console they sell you fails, good luck getting a reply from VKMoney25. He's on vacation. Now here's my favorite part of this whole story. When a friend of mine was questioning the quality of the seller's work on a forum, a comment appeared in the conversation. I'm going to read it to you in full. He fully cleans the consoles. It includes a full replacement of all the tokens with the Felix tantalizers, full delid of the 40nm, many won't do it, they claim it's not safe, which is not true if you do it while it's off the board. He does the BD3504 voltage mod, and the resistors. I know I'm missing some stuff, but yeah, he's had zero complaints on eBay or anywhere from anyone who's gotten the service even after a very long time. Also, I can show you proof that people used to not even do the voltage mod, and there are consoles that are still working 2 years later. Might want to read up on the forums and you'll see that they can't say definitely anything about the voltage mod. Just that yes, it should extend the life of your console, and yeah, it should be done, but only 2 have been documented died without the voltage mod. So is everyone who uses the BD3504 doing the dirty voltage mod? Is that what you're claiming, boss? Let's go through this. He fully cleans the consoles. Here's what it looks like when I opened it. Full replacement of the tokens. Here's the underside of the board, original capacitors never touched. He does the BD3504 voltage mod and the resistors. Here's the voltage reading, 1.2 volts. And here's the repair service listing photo, their own proof of work, showing the dirty mod, not the BD3504. On the point about the voltage mod not being proven to cause failures, that's actually a fair representation of where the community evidence stands. It's not a slam dunk, but here's my response to that. This console was sold for over $500. It probably won't kill the chip is not an acceptable standard at that price point. You do the voltage adjustment, it takes only minutes. There is no reason to skip it. Now, I don't know who wrote that comment. It appears behind an anonymous account on Reddit, but whoever it was knows exactly what a BD3504 is, what a delid involves, what the Felix tantalizers are, and which specific PSX place forms discuss the VDDR adjustment. That's a very specific knowledge base for someone who just happens to be a satisfied customer defending a seller they like. I'll let you draw your own conclusions. So let's add things up. Dusty interior, wrong capacitor type advertised versus what was installed, missing MLCCs, 20-year-old crumbling thermal pads, while all of the NEC token capacitors on the underside of the board were untouched, while the listing claims both sides were done. No voltage adjustment of any kind on a chip that needs one, sold for over $500 with a warranty that the seller won't honor. Aurelia Tech Mods, vacay money 25, has sold hundreds of Frankenstein consoles at these prices through the listings I could find, and that's before accounting for any listings that have since cycled out. The repair service has 90 sales on its own. If this console is representative of the standard of work being done across those sales, there are a lot of people out there sitting on consoles with the same problems, and a seller who went quiet the moment they were needed. The Frankenstein mod itself is real. When it's done correctly, it's one of the best things you can do for a launch model PS3. This isn't a hit piece on the mod itself. It's a very specific look at one seller who was charging premium prices for work that, on this unit, was just not done. If you're considering buying a Frankenstein PS3 from anyone, here's what you should do before you hand over any money. Ask them some questions. Did you replace all of the NEC token capacitors on both sides of the motherboard? Did you install MLCCs? What method did you use for the voltage adjustment? Can you show me photos of the board work? If they can't answer those questions specifically, or if they go quiet, there's your answer. And if you already bought one from vacay money 25 and it's giving you problems, check the description for my contact info. Unlike some people, I'll actually respond. Your console has been on vacation long enough.